Let me begin by introducing myself. My name is Vlado. I'm Service Delivery Manager here at NIL Learning, which effectively means that I'm team lead for our team of SMEs, instructors, and content developers. And I've been in this business for a while now, and I think I'll be a good person to talk to you today about certification, Cisco certification, and specifically about the new CCNA 2.0. So without further ado, I think we can begin. So let's start with just a very brief info about who Concha is, what's our part in it. So NIL is one of the group member companies in the Concha group. We're currently located in 6 different countries. Our main business revolves around Cisco-focused technologies and solutions and products, although not exclusively in that area. We are currently roughly 1,000 employees strong, out of which a very, very good measure are actually engineers and subject matter experts. And a big part of that story is also Cisco-focused education, of which I'm part. The Cisco education part is actually celebrating 30 years of continuous existence and operation this year. Okay, with that, let's maybe take a brief look into what we will be talking about today. So we'll go through several things. First of all, we will be talking about Cisco certifications in general. We will be taking a look at what certifications exist, what technologies they cover, and so forth. We will then talk about why is it good to be certified, and we'll cover that in 2 slightly different ways. We'll talk about the value of getting certified and why it could be useful for you to pursue certification apart from certification itself. We'll then move on to how you can go about actually getting yourself certified, and we'll then wrap up with information related to the new CCNA version 2.0, and final part will be the Q&A session, as I said. So that's the general agenda of today's session. So let's go into reviewing the Cisco certifications. As you most likely know, those of you who've been around for a while, Cisco certifications have changed a bit a few years ago, and it's worth taking a look at the status of the certifications, how they are today. At the same time, those of you who are maybe newer to the whole story of Cisco certified enablements and so forth, it might be a good idea to get a feel for how these things look in the first place. So the first thing to note is that Cisco certifications are divided into different certification levels, effectively, or if I simple it down from the easiest to most demanding, and let's take a look at what those levels are. The first one is the entry level. And to be honest, that's the level that a lot of people actually skip. The example of the entry level certification would be Cisco Certified Support Technician certification. This one is below the CCNA, which is the associate level. And that's actually the certification level at which a lot of people enter the Cisco certification stories. We will see later on that entry level, or the CCST, for instance, has a bit of exception to the rest of the certifications, but we'll check that one out in a few moments. So the associate is the let's say the most common, the most typical certification level for us to get into. The next one is professional. Professional, commonly known as CCNP or Cisco Certified Network Professional level, is the level at which quite a lot of, let's say, senior engineers end up. This is the one that goes beyond the associate level, and usually it's associated also with some sort of specialization, because as we'll see in a few moments, CCNA or associate level of certification is kind of a baseline. It's kind of general entry level, which covers a lot of different technologies. But then when you go beyond that, you typically start deciding what kind of technology you want to be more focused on. And that's where the professional level comes in. For those who are not satisfied with simply be a well-established, recognized professionals, there is also then the expert level, which is currently Cisco's top certification level, where CCIE is one of the very well-known certifications, Cisco Certified Internet Networking Expert, where you demonstrate that you effectively have complete understanding of the technology vertical that you are getting certified in, and it's considered actually to be one of the more prestigious certifications in the computer industry as well. So that's the levels, like I said, from the, let's say, from the easiest one to the most complex one. But then there's also technologies, and obviously the two things then intersect somehow, and we'll see how that looks also in a few moments. Technology tracks within Cisco are divided amongst enterprise, collaboration, data center, security, and service provider. These are not all of them. We'll see the ones that are missing from this list in a moment, but the five of the ones that I have just stated here are kind of grouped together. Why? Because the common baseline for all of them is the CCNA certification. So typically people who start with CCNA on associate level will then go onto the professional level on one of the five tracks, technology tracks that are mentioned here above. And that's also one of the reasons why CCNA certification is so well known, so widely spread, because it serves as a good jumping point for further specialization down the line. However, these are not the only ones. We do have the design level certification or technology track, if I put it like that, which is slightly special because apart from every other track that we have, the design level, the design track is expert level only. So it's equivalent to CCIE. The difference between the two is the CCIE is more, let's say, specific technology implementation, maintenance, and troubleshooting oriented, whereas design, as the name would suggest, is more oriented into how you design different solutions. And like I said, this one has no professional level, has no associate level assigned with it. It's expert level only. We do also have a completely separate track, which has its own associate, professional, and expert level, which is the DevNet. This one is relatively new. I think it's been around for about 4 to 5 years, something like that. And on top of it, the newest one is the CyberOps, which is also completely separate. The one difference between this one is that there is currently no expert level certification associated with it. So we only have the associate and professional levels for the CyberOps. But this one is, let's say, the newest in the line of technology tracks that Cisco's got. The slide here shows the most complete, let's say, cross-section of entry-level, associate, professional, and expert certifications combined with all the technology tracks that each of those certification levels encounters. One of the things that we might find interesting on this particular slide is the fact that, for example, if I go on the associate level, a single exam is needed. However, when I go higher, usually certifications require multiple exams. For example, if I stay on the enterprise track, one exam that should be taken is the core exam or enterprise core exam. And then there is option for you to choose between one of the few available exams that Cisco calls concentration exams, but my preferred term for that is actually focus exams, because it allows you to select the particular subsection of the technology that you are most interested in. For example, you could choose automation in the enterprise level. On the data center, you could choose ACI, or you could choose, for example, design section of that, and so on and so forth. But basically, there's always a core exam and then one of the focus exams which are most suited to your particular needs. One of the interesting things that you may see if you study this particular slide for a bit is also that in some instances, certain exams that are concentration or focus exams are actually cross-secting multiple certification tracks. So here down below, we have a DevNet track, which for its core exam has the DevNet core exam. But then the concentration or focus exams are oftentimes the same ones as you can find in different technology tracks up here, which can actually be fairly interesting, because it would mean that if you take the Dev core exam and then, for example, DC core exam, you are a good way towards certifying for the DevNet track as well as the data center CCNP tracks. But then if you take the DC Auto exam here, at the same time, this gives you, sorry, DC Auto is here. At the same time, this gives you a requirement to fulfill both of the certification tracks. So instead of having to pass 4 exams to receive 2 different certifications, only 3 are needed, which in certain scenarios can obviously be quite beneficial. So yeah, that let's say kind of covers the cross section of skill levels as well as the technology points. Let's move on towards the value of you getting certified. So what is actually what are actually some of the reasons why you might consider getting certified on different levels of Cisco certification? So why does it matter if you're certified? The first thing is obviously certifying yourself, or maybe more appropriately, getting ready to be certified increases your competencies, meaning that, I don't know, if you're doing certain tasks, if you're, for example, configuring routers and switches, you would be better qualified to actually do that job if you prepare yourself, if you study the material that tells you how to achieve certain tasks, you will be able to do them better after you're ready for that. This will also, of course, make it easier to achieve certain tasks that maybe in the past you have been struggling with. Maybe you needed, I don't know, to Google really a lot of things, which in some cases slowed you down or maybe made you more error prone. Getting properly ready and prepared to do those jobs will of course, make it easier for you to do them. Furthermore, as your competencies rise, you will typically also be able to get access to projects that are more complex, and more complex doesn't necessarily mean more difficult, although Oftentimes it might, but it might mean more challenging projects in terms that more technologies will be involved, more aspects of certain solutions, interdisciplinary projects, and so forth, which with a more basic knowledge level might not necessarily be available to you. I don't know, your bosses may not necessarily have sufficient faith that you'd be able to accomplish them. But as you get better educated, better prepared, those kind of projects and opportunities may open up, meaning that you will get more exposure, meaning that you'll be also through those more complex projects be able to learn more, which will further improve your possibilities further on. There's also not insignificant fact involved that with certification, there is typically recognition assigned. We all know that certifications or having to do things like write exams is something that quite often we gripe at because we say, okay, it's not necessarily the reflection of my knowledge. But the fact of the matter is that if you have a group of people in front of you, and some people do have certification and other people don't, you will gravitate probably more towards the group of the people with certification that you know reflects the skill level that you're looking for. If you know all the people within the group in a lot of detail, and you know that some people within that group without certification also have the level of knowledge that you seek, then you will still obviously reach out to them. But in situations where that kind of level of knowledge may not necessarily be present, or in situations maybe where you are trying to get certain projects where people who you're communicating with to give you access to those projects don't yet know you, then certification obviously is a good recognizing standard so that you can skip steps that would otherwise be needed for you to reassure them that you actually know what you're doing. Career advancement might be directly tied in to certifications. One good example, for instance, would be the company that I work with, NIL, where we have internally, in some scenarios, some levels of internal positions associated directly with certification. So in order to get to certain internal career level, certification in some scenarios is a prerequisite because it shows it levels the playing field. First of all, it makes things easier and more objective to judge, and it also, at the end of the day, shows your commitment that you are actually willing to do all the steps necessary in order to show that your knowledge is actually at the level that you say it is. And finally, but not the least important part, is obviously certification may be directly or in some cases indirectly be tied into your earning potential. We'll see in a few moments why that is so, but it could mean, again, within the company, if your career advancement may be tied into certification, usually advancement is tied into some additional compensation package situation, or if you would be down the line deciding to change jobs, obviously the better certification you hold, the better position you are in to negotiate slightly better compensation package at your future employer. So what we've got here is example of individual benefits of certification that have been gathered from the Skillsoft IT Skills Salary Report for the last year. This is IT salary report that gets generated year over year, and it's a good read. You can simply Google it and you can find the full report. I pulled a couple of pages out from it. And one of the things that I would like to focus on here is how does job effectiveness how is job effectiveness impacted by training? So what happens after you get trained? And this is based on the responses from a few thousand people who have been presented with this survey. And a vast majority of them has said that the quality of the work has improved, which would be only natural because, of course, if you don't know a lot about certain technology, you get trained on it, and then you get tasked with providing some projects related to that technology. Obviously, you will be working better. It's also then stands to reason that you'll be able to do stuff faster. I received a raise is almost 1 in 5 of those responders. I got a new job is also almost 1 in 5. I received a promotion is slightly lower, but still goes to show that quite a lot of people who are attending trainings receive some sort of business related benefits out of this, apart from actually being able to do their job faster. Another thing that is important in this story is also the fact that there are certain factors that lead to increased salaries in your positions. The number one factor that, again, the same group of people outlined was if you are performing well in your current job, that usually does lead to some sort of increase. But I would like to point down to, let's say, in the lower half, there is the information that obtaining industry certification means is one of the reasons why salary increase was also put in place. And I would argue here that obtaining industry certification actually helps with a lot of the things that we see here, because obviously if you have obtained industry certification, that may mean that you will be working better. It may mean that you will get assigned additional responsibilities. It may mean that you have developed new skills. It may mean that you will get promoted, which all of those things typically mean that there is a good chance of compensation improvement. So at the end of the day, it's not just something that you do for your everyday work. It's not just something that maybe your company needs. It can actually lead to very, very concrete improvements for your style of life as well. Right. So beyond all of the things that we have mentioned right now, are there any additional benefits? Let's see if that may or may not be the case. I would argue that there are actually additional benefits apart from everything that we have just mentioned. And one of the things, especially if you're attending in-person trainings, for example, classroom trainings where you interact with people, or you attend conferences such as, I don't know, Cisco Live, where again, training can be attended, or you simply get to know additional aspects of technology or products or solutions that you are looking to be certified on, is the networking aspect. And obviously here I'm not talking about technology networking, here I'm talking about people networking, because you get in touch with your peers. You get in touch with people on maybe Cisco side or with other partners who may be valuable resources for you to exchange some ideas, to exchange some information, to keep in touch down the line, which would either then help you in either your career advancements down the line, or would simply be good sources for information, or to maybe shoot some ideas around when you get stuck. So that is a very concrete benefit, which oftentimes can be overlooked, and it is something that you can achieve as you're pursuing your certification. You are learning continuously. That is not necessarily a benefit on its own, even though obviously it can be, but it is important, as I'm sure you all know, that in our business we strive to learn all the time, because technology changes. Arguably, it changes quicker and quicker as the years pass, and arguably it becomes more complex as the years pass. So if you are in the mode that you don't stop learning, that, if nothing else, in the worst case scenario, means that you will stay at the same level as you are. Because if you stop learning, then inevitably things will overtake you, and you need to try to keep on top of stuff so that you can simply keep at the same level, that you'll be able to keep doing your job as new products, new integrations, new solutions keep on popping up in your specific technology field. Yeah. And also, last but not least, there is undoubtedly confidence boost assigned with getting certain certifications, because then you have something to show. Either you prove to yourself that you can pass a particularly demanding exam, or you can show to your boss, okay, see, I've been telling you, I'm actually a good engineer. I've got here now a certificate to prove it. And also there's obviously a peer validation that can go aside with all of that. So there are also, let's say, ephemeral benefits to be certified, apart from just having that certification which you are gearing towards. Let's see. We talked about Cisco certifications. We talked about benefits of certification. Let's now spend some amount of time determining how we can actually achieve that certification. So what kind of resources are there, what's needed to get certified, and so forth. So the first thing that we have is, what do we need to get certified? And that's the question with a very straightforward answer. It's not complicated at all. You need to pass an exam. We've seen that in slide slightly before. In some cases, multiple exams are required, but in some cases also a single exam is sufficient. So that's very simple. Exams with Cisco are mostly written exams. Certain exams are also practical. Specifically, expert level exams are practical, which there are also written. Actually, as you may or may not know, if you want to go up to the CCIE level, you first need to take a written exam, which kind of qualifies you then to also take a practical exam. Practical exams are specifically considered to be one of the more challenging exams that Cisco has to offer. They're usually a full day exams. You got 8 hours worth of time. You are faced with a series of challenges, series of tasks that you need to accomplish, and then you need to solve those challenges, complete those tasks in any way that you can do. The exams are considered to be open book exams, meaning that you have access to the technical information. You can Google stuff up on Cisco's website and so forth. But the fact of the matter is that that information won't help you enough if you don't know initially what you're doing, because you'll simply run out of time, even if you would check every simple solution on the Cisco's website, which in theory you could do, but you wouldn't be able to do everything in time. So preparation, knowledge is needed in order to actually be able to complete such exams. That's also why the expert level exams with Cisco are usually considered to be very prestigious exams. So what can you do to prepare? One of the things that is fairly interesting, but also in my opinion important with Cisco, is that if you know your stuff well enough, your experience might be sufficient for you to pass the exam. You don't necessarily need to, I don't know, you don't necessarily need to go and take a course. You don't necessarily need to Google stuff up. if you know what you're doing, if you're confident in your abilities based on what is being tested, you can simply sit down, take the exam, and you will be able to pass. However, not everyone starts at that level. Not everyone first accumulates experience and gets certified, and then, I don't know, does with that certification whatever they need to do. A lot of people actually train themselves to be certified, which then opens up ability to them to get real life experience afterwards. So trainings or other online resources are oftentimes the default way to go. There's instructor-led trainings, there's online-led trainings. I myself would seriously recommend instructor-led trainings as the preferred way to go. I'm not saying necessarily that other ways of preparing yourself are inferior, but there is an additional bonus to be able to sit in the classroom with your peers, again, exchange ideas, communicate better with the instructor, get some Q&A going, get some discussion going, be able to ask, to the point questions about things that you're either interested in or maybe are not always as clearly explained in the material as you would like to have explained. So that typically gives you then a better approach to be properly prepared for what follows. And obviously what follows is the actual exam, which you then take, and after successfully passing the exam, you are then certified for the topic that you want to be certified on. An example in our case would be 200-301 CCNA exam, which you can take in order to be CCNA certified. You can find for every level of certification detailed information obviously on Cisco's website. For every certification level, there is a subsection which gives you additional information about what steps are available for you to make sure that your certification will be successfully achieved. So now you're certified. You passed the exam or the exam successfully. You're now certified. What happens next? Is your certification valid for life? Well, fortunately or unfortunately, depending how you look at it, it's not. Unfortunately, obviously, because you have to put some additional effort in, which in some cases, it's not necessarily the fact that you don't want to do it, but you may not necessarily have time to do it. But you need to put some effort in keeping being certified. Thankfully, certifications are not typically for life. Why? Because obviously, if you were certified, let's say on CCNA level 20 years ago, that certification today wouldn't really necessarily mean a lot because things have changed in that time significantly, and you need to keep up also with certifications. So how long are certifications valid for? Typically, as far as I'm aware, currently all Cisco certifications are valid for 3 years. So you need to recertify your certifications every 3 years. The question is, how can you do that? And their answer is there are multiple ways to do it. You can either retake the same exam that you took initially to achieve that certification, which okay is one way to do it, and in the past it was actually almost the only way how you could go about it, but people were not necessarily happy that it was the only way. So Cisco eventually introduced the concept of continuing education credits. So continuing education credits are basically points that you accumulate as you take additional trainings, most typically. Information about that is something that you can get on different websites. I'm gonna show you here. For instance, I've got a list of Cisco courses on the Cisco U website, which I invite you to take a look at later on if you haven't yet. And you can see that we have several courses. Specifically on Cisco U's website, we currently have 60 tracks, 60 courses that you can look that have continuing education credits associated with them. With each course, you can see how many credits you would achieve if you take the course. So it's an attendance of the course, it's successfully completing the course that would award you those education credits. You do not need to pass an exam. You just need to successfully complete the course. This particular course has, for example, 30 education credits that you would be assigned if you complete it. This one, on the other hand, has more than double the amount. It's got 64 education credits. Now, how does this actually translate into what you need in particular scenario? Let's take a look at that, and we will see that depending on the certification level that you want to renew, you need different amount of continuing education credits in order to recertify. So for associate, 30 credits, which was the initial course that we saw, would be sufficient. For specialist, which is kind of intermediate, it doesn't directly fall into this, you would need 40 credits. For professional, 80 credits are required, which is less than the second course that we've seen. And for expert, you would need 120 credits. So this helps out a bit because obviously if the certifications are valid for 3 years, that means that you've got 3 years in which you can accumulate those credits. So for instance, if you are, I don't know, if you want to recertify as professional, you could visit a couple of courses, you could attend a couple of courses, and that would be enough for you. For expert, you might either need to pick a more challenging courses to attend or more of the lower entry courses. But important thing is you can also combine accumulating certain amount of continuing education credits with taking one or more exams. Exactly how many, what kind of combination is okay, is something that you can also find on Cisco's website. There's the recertification part of Cisco's website, which then lists, for example, the requirements of what you need to do. So for instance, for professional, you could accumulate 40 credits and pass one of the professional focus exams, for instance. For CCIE level, you should earn 120 credits or earn 40 credits and pass one technology core exam, 40 credits and pass two separate professional focus exams, or earn 80 credits and pass one professional focus exam. So you've got different options available to you, and important part is that with these things you can mix and match whatever you want to do in order to be able to keep certified. Additionally, important piece of information is also that if you recertify for a higher level certification, for example, if you recertify for CCIE level certification, that will automatically recertify you for professional level certification. Yeah? So that's most of the things that you need to know. One more important part is, it is true that certifications are valid for 3 years. So now the question is, what happens if in the first year, after I have been certified, let's say a CCNP, I accumulate 80 CECs? When do they kick in? The answer is they kick in as soon as you accumulate credit number 80. So even if you do that within the first year after you were certified CCNP, you would then from that point onwards be certified for the next 3 years. The credits don't wait for your initial certification to almost expire to kick in. They start, basically they recertify you at the point when you accumulate them. Yeah. Okie dokie. CCNA examination is in packet tracer is a question. No, CCNA examination takes place within VUE. So there's an online certification partner that Cisco uses, which is Person View. You can go and take certification exams either online, if your computer can be verified that it conforms towards the exam standards, which not all of them do. In some cases, your company security policies may actually prevent you from taking some of the exams, but you can also always obviously go to a physical Person View testing center and do certification exam there. So no, the CCNA examination is not in packet tracer, but you could use packet tracer for preparing yourself for the exam. That would be a good use of the tool, obviously, where you would maybe prepare some scenarios which would then make you understand certain topics a bit better. Yeah. We'll talk slightly more about examination also later on. So we're reaching now the CCNA 2.0. Okay, so CCNA is a certification that is considered to be an industry-wide network standard. It is, like I said before, a base certification that Cisco has. As we've seen, it's a starting point for the majority of the technology tracks that you may need to pursue, exception being the cyber ops and DevNet tracks. But otherwise, it's a very, very good starting point for you to start with and then grow from then onwards. Interesting aspect of the fact is that it is appreciated even in non-networking jobs because it does provide people who work, let's say, primarily with servers, for instance, or people who work with cloud environments and stuff like that. It is always good to know networking basics. It's always good to understand what it means when we say that things are in different VLANs, what it means when we are putting things in different subnets, what it means if we need to route stuff between different networks and so on and so forth. So those kind of basic information points are useful pretty much wherever you work in IT. And that's also if you're applying for a non-networking job, if you are CCNA certified, that does give you a good foundation also for those jobs. Obviously, required experience and in some cases certifications that directly relate to those jobs are also a good thing, but CCNA may be something again that may push you over the top if your competitive candidates don't have that experience. And like I said more than once, it is a core of most Cisco certifications. So what kind of technologies specifically are getting taught in the current CCNA 2.0? Well, as it turns out, there's quite a few of them. There's network fundamentals, there's network routing, there's network security fundamentals, WAN and network services, network management, wireless, and network switching. So all of those things are part of the CCNA training. And obviously, all of those things are also then being tested on when you attempt to achieve your certification. CCNA as a course exists in multiple editions, so there is not just a single version of the course. Although let me correct that. There is a single version of the course in the way that the content is the same, but the way how that content is provided to you depends on your preference, or in some cases on maybe also the time that you've got available. Like I said before, the default time-tested version of or edition of the course is the instructor-led course. Like I said before, also the benefits of that are maybe getting a bit more information from in-class experience, getting a bit more information and ability to ask the questions and converse with the instructor, with your fellow students that are on the course, and so on and so forth. But if for whatever reason that format doesn't suit you, you don't have time, you don't have ability to attend it or something like that, there are also online editions available. Again, Cisco U, let me show that here, is a way to approach that. Here is an example how you start the CCNA level of CCNA training enablement within Cisco U. We can see that it would take you roughly 50 hours to complete. So it's more than a week's worth of intense training, which is made up out of 45 sections of theory and out of 45 lab exercises. So it's a lot of the CCNA course is focused on hands-on experience. We'll see that also later on. There are 14 assessments. Assessments, by the way, are the way how in online courses it is evaluated whether or not you have completed the course. At the end of each segment that we have here, there will be an assessment that will contain a few questions, and you then answer those questions. And when you answer them correctly, it is assumed that you have successfully mastered that particular section, and you can keep on going with the next one. You can continue with the other sections, but until you actually complete the assessments, the course will not be marked as completed, which means also that those continuing education credits will only be assigned after all the assessments are complete. Yeah. There's also an alternative way, because Cisco U is being accessed through a way of subscription plans. So that may or may not be suitable for you. It's a good way to actually consume enablement, because it allows you, of course, to access more than a single enablement. But if you're only looking for one-off training, then maybe Learning Network Store is another way of doing it, where you also have, for example, CCNA available. You can simply purchase that as a single course, and you get access to the same content, but not as a kind of subscription-based thing, but more as a thing that you have purchased. And as it says here, it's available for you to consume for 180 days, for half a year, in which and during this time you have full access to the self-paced training, to the video edition, to the labs, and all of that. And also, of course, you can go to learning.nil.com webpage, where you can also find CCNA course, and you can then book for the period that suits you, and then attend that course live with an instructor or online, if that's also your preference. So multiple options available, multiple ways for you to get through the training. Again, none of this is, strictly speaking, required. If you're confident enough that you have the knowledge, that you have the expertise, you can simply book an exam for you, take the exam, pass the exam, and you're good. If you feel, on the other hand, that you need a bit more preparation, then all of those avenues are available for you. Let's focus slightly more on the ILT version, so on the instructor-led training version of the course, where I would like to tell you that this, even though it is an associate level course, which means it's relatively entry-level course, it is nevertheless fairly intense in terms of the content that is covered in the course. So here is the list of all the topics that you will be exposed to in classroom. So those are the lecture-based topics, quite a few of them, as you can see. I'm obviously not going to read all of them. It's just to give you an illustration. And these topics are covered in 5 days. The topics, as we'll see in a moment, are also supplemented by labs. So you have some lecture, the instructor takes you to the lab where you get ability to actually try out the things that you were talking about just before, or that the instructor was talking about just before. And this covers 5 days of fairly time-packed lectures and labs. However, unfortunately, this isn't all of it. I'm saying unfortunately because it would usually be preferred that you would be able to consume all of that together with the instructor. However, some topics which roughly cover additional 3 days of topics need to be self-study based, because otherwise the course would simply be too long. People usually don't want to attend courses that are longer than 5 days, and 3 days worth of content is saved for self-study. That's the online version, which you need to go through by yourself. There is hands-on part. There's 44 practical exercises here, which cover altogether 940 minutes, which translates into 15 hours, 15 and a half hours of hands-on exercises. This, if you are really hunkering down, translates into 2 full days of just doing labs. Actually, it's a bit more than that, because probably you won't be going 8 hours straight per day. So it would more typically be 2.5 to 3 days of just labs. The rest is the theory or conceptual content, as we call it. The important part of all of this is that obviously all of this information, all of these lectures, all of these exercises gives you then a good basis to prepare you to take an exam. The exam for the CCNA is 200-301 exam. It lasts for 120 minutes, or in other words, that's the amount of time that you have to take it, 120 minutes. And like I said before, you can either take it in certified testing center, or you can do it online, and the passing score that you need to complete is 80%. So 80% of the questions that you are presented with need to be answered correctly. The questions are most of the time multiple option single choice questions. In some cases they're multiple choice questions as well. In some cases they're mix and match questions. So there are different types of questions, but the topics that are covered in the exam can be again looked at online. The breakdown in terms of technologies or the topics that are covered looks like this. So 20% of questions will be focused around network fundamentals, 20% around network access, 25% around IP connectivity, 10% around IP services, 15% around security, and 10% around automation and programmability, as it's becoming more and more important topic. There are multiple different resources that you can also reach out to in order to get prepared for the exam specifically. The CCNA course obviously is one of those resources, but there are also more focused exam resources that you can look at. On the Cisco's website, you can find example of some of the questions that you may find in the exam itself, not the actual questions, but the questions that are written in the same form, in the same fashion as what will be seen on the course. And there's also study groups that you can find either on Cisco's website or on social networks such as LinkedIn and so forth, that you can engage with, where you may get together with people who are also preparing for the CCNA or other certifications that will help you prepare for the course itself. That's pretty much it. We have reached the Q&A session. But with that, let's maybe take a look at what may be next for you. My recommendation would be, before you go through the certification with Cisco, take a look at the certification webpage. It really contains pretty much all of the information that you need in terms of which certifications are currently available, which certifications are currently active, and then you pick the one that you want to go towards, and then you find the resources like the ones that we mentioned today that may lead you in that direction. Learning.nil.com webpage will definitely be a good resource as well in that direction. There's a lot of information there that you can, again, help you go towards your goal. There's a lot of information regarding which certifications might be good or which might be slightly less suitable for you at that point in time. And obviously, you can also book specific trainings on that webpage. And if there are any additional questions that you may not have asked right now, you can always direct them to me, and I'll either answer them myself or I'll direct you to a person who may be more suitable for answering them. Okay, with that, I would like to thank you very much for your time and your attention today. I hope you learned something useful, something interesting, something new today, and I'll be seeing you in the future. Bye-bye.